Tim Ferriss says the quality of your life is determined by the number of difficult conversations you're willing to have. But the real key, in my opinion, is all right, welcome to episode 3 of Brolosophy. I am Mike Fio.
And I'm Nick Fio.
And we are the Fio Bros.
And our intention with this podcast is super simple: to share practical wisdom for a happier, more fulfilling life.
And this episode in particular is part 3 of a 5-part series on this book right here, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying by Bronnie Ware. A quick background on the book is it was written by an Australian writer who basically spent countless hours with people on their deathbeds, and she compiled a list of their top 5 regrets. So in this episode, we're specifically talking about regret number 3 and how we can avoid having that regret when we get to the end of our lives. So Nick, with that said, what is regret number 3?
Regret number 3. I wish I had the courage to express my feelings.
Yeah, this one really resonated with me.
Same, especially as a dude who often struggles to express their feelings. This one really transformed my life once I internalized it.
Yeah,
but
you're like a stone cold killer. You needed this one.
yeah, well, let's get into the actual story that our girl Bronnie tells that really teaches us this regret.
Yeah, so the author, Bronnie, typically spends time with people that are in the later stages of their life, 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
But this experience that she had was totally different from the rest because the person she was taking care of was a young woman in her 40s.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Named Jude. So Jude was this, like I said, young, beautiful, elegant woman who grew up in this super wealthy family.
Yeah.
And she had this typical Titanic love story going on.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is her parents put a tremendous amount of pressure on her to keep it simple, to marry rich. They wanted her to marry someone with the same level of prestige as their wealthy family. But if Jude was honest...
Don't break the country club lifestyle
stigma.
But
But if Jude was honest, she never really vibed with that country club lifestyle. She was more of like a free spirit. So instead of following her parents' wishes and marrying rich, she decides to do the exact opposite. And
like most kids do.
she marries a starving artist. So as you can imagine, Jude's parents, upon seeing her do this, completely cut her off from their lives. I mean, I wouldn't expect them to completely cut them off, but that's what their parents did. Her parents did. No talking at all. Fast forward 20 years, and Jude had not spoken to her mother, not even a word. In that 20 years, Jude starts a family with this man, has a child, and then she gets a phone call that completely changes her life. It's her doctor, and he says, Jude, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have a deadly motor neuron disease, and you don't have much longer to live. So obviously, Jude and her family are completely destroyed by this news. But after a while, Jude found a silver lining and used this time to really reflect deeply on her life and think about what she could do with her time left. So she gets out a piece of paper and a pen, and while she still can use her hands, writes a letter to her mother. And in this letter, she basically says, Mom, I just want you to know I love you and I forgive you for everything. She closes it up, puts it in the mail, and she doesn't expect anything from it.
She just feels lighter because
she feels lighter. So a couple days later, there's a knock at Jude's door. The husband goes to see who it is, and surprise, surprise, it's the mother. She asks if she can come in, and the husband says, of course. And the mother walks into the bedroom where Jude is basically just about a vegetable. At this point, she can no longer speak and she can no longer move. And the mother, as soon as she sees Jude, just starts bawling, crying, just totally bawling. And she goes on to tell Jude that when she received this letter from Jude, she had a personal transformation of her own. And she realized that all this time it was really jealousy that she was feeling for her own daughter, which was fucked up for her to admit, but she had the courage to admit that. And she was jealous because Jude had lived a life that was true to herself, something that the mother never had the courage to do. And so this resentment was stemming from that jealousy. And so she got that all out, and she told Jude, I'm so sorry that I haven't been there for you all these years. I'm so sorry to see you like this. I love you with all my heart. And then she gave Jude a hug, and Jude can't move, but tears are just slowly streaming and streaming down Jude's face. And there was this beautiful moment of catharsis, and Bronnie was in the room when this happened, and she said, like, the entire room just felt like a veil had been lifted and like 1,000 pounds lighter once this moment happened. Shortly after that moment, Jude passed. But right before she did, she told Bronnie these words: "We must learn to express our feelings now. None of us ever know when it will be too late. Tell people you love them. Tell them you appreciate them. If they can't accept it, it doesn't matter. What matters is you have told them." Super, super powerful story, man. I almost cried telling it.
Wow. You did a great job retelling it. Whew, that's heavy shit, man. As soon as you said the whole story, it just kind of reminded me of like the simple fact that death is truly our greatest teacher. It basically gets you to like strip away all the bullshit and just prioritize what's truly important. And it reminds me of when me and you went to visit the 9/11 museum. We went to visit that museum because we were doing a documentary on what happened that day, because we're New Yorkers, and when the World Trade Center was hit, we were really young. I was in 4th grade, you were in kindergarten, so we really wanted to deepen our understanding about what actually happened that day. Talk about the last exhibit we saw that day.
Yeah, it was this room lined with telephone booths. And when you picked up the phone at any of these booths, what you heard were the voices of people making their final phone calls, people that were in the towers or in the planes that were hijacked, calling up people that they loved. And you got to hear their last words.
Yeah.
And it was so fucking powerful, man.
We basically heard people that were looking death right in the eyes. And this was what was coming out of them.
Yeah.
And it really gets you to think, okay, like when you're looking death right in the eyes, what is the most important thing in the world?
Yeah. It reminds me of when we gave the TED Talk and we included the famous phone call from the guy, Brian Sweeney.
Yeah.
Well, let's play it real quick.
Jules, this is Ryan. Lives on an airplane that's been hijacked. If things don't go well, it's not looking good. I just want you to know I absolutely love you. I want you to do it. So have a good time. Thanks to my parents and everybody. And I just totally love you. And I will see you later. Bye, Dave. Bye, call you.
Yeah, that call gets me every single time.
Chills literally every single time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But in summary, what does it teach us?
Basically,
right?
what we took away from it was that every single phone call, literally every single one, without fail, the last words were an expression of love. What they wanted more than anything was to tell people that they loved how much they loved them. That was what they needed to express before they died. And in our TED Talk, the whole thesis of it was, if love and expressing that love is what matters most in the end, then why not do it now while we still can?
Yeah.
And that reminds me of the
Of
story.
exactly
It's the same thing.
words that you just shared.
Yeah.
So on that note, I love you, Mike.
I love you too, bro. I love you, whoever's watching, even though I may not know you. I have love for you.
Yeah. But let's get back to this story a little bit, right? So did you put yourself in her shoes?
Who?
So what was her name? Jane?
Jude.
Jude. So Jude,
Yeah.
44 years old, gets this terminal illness diagnosis. And did you put yourself in her shoes where you felt that for yourself?
Yeah, this chapter really changed my life. Not because I read it, but because I read it and then actually put it into action.
Which is what
Reading should
knowledge
be
and
about.
wisdom is all about.
Yeah. So our sister, we call her Angela because we're Italian. Her name's Angela. My relationship with her over the last few years was really not great. It's not that it wasn't great. It just wasn't where it used to be. Like as a kid, we would sleep in the same bed because there was 4 kids in our house and we didn't really have too many bedrooms. So up until I was literally in high school, I slept with her and we were so close and she was almost like a second mother to me. And we had this really amazing relationship full of love and it was awesome. But then just time happened and we grew apart more and more. And it culminated into this big fight a couple years back where we just went at each other like big time. And ever since that fight, things never felt the same. So every time we would see each other, there was always this like deep underlying tension where there was never like that connection that we once had. And so once I read this book, it made me reflect on my life. And if I was at the end, like what would be the relationships that I would regret not having like expressed what I really want to say? And I thought of Angela. So it was really simple. I, one night, just decided to give her a call. And she said, hello. And I said, hey, Anj. And she said, what's up? I said, nothing. I just want to call you to let you know that I'm sorry for just all of the shit that I've said to you, all of the judgments I've put on you. And it really has been causing me a great deal of pain how separated I feel like we've become. And I just want you to know I love you more than anything. I accept you exactly as you are.
Wow.
And I don't want our relationship to go on this way. I want us to be close again. And I just want you to know I really love you. And I'm sorry for everything. And
How did she respond?
at first, silence for a little bit. And then I could tell she was tearing up and crying a little bit. And then she said, oh, Mikey. And then, and then,
Baby Mikey.
yeah. And then she basically repeated what I said back to me. She said, I love you too, Mike. That sounds amazing. I'm sorry.
So
for-
it seems like similar to the story in this book with her mom,
yeah.
the receiver of the message actually had their own transformational moment as well.
Yeah. And the good news is that ever since then, our relationship feels like it used to, like when we were kids. It
Wow.
feels like every time we meet, when we hug, it's like a real hug where you feel the love, you feel the connection. When we talked, it's a real connection. It's like we let go of all that bullshit
Yeah.
that was in the way. And all it took was one, like, somewhat courageous phone call to fix this, like, pebble in my shoe. And I feel like it was life changing.
So,
It was totally life
Let
changing.
me ask you, first of all, that's a beautiful story, and I'm really proud of you
Thank you.
for not just reading this book, but really taking it to heart and using it to improve the quality of your life. And I admire that quality in you a lot.
Thank you.
Going a little different path here, like trying to go deeper into this. Why do you think we as humans, as a society, struggle so much with this ability to express and have the courage to express how we really feel?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny. I think men, at least from my observation, struggle with it a lot more. We tend to bottle our shit up way more and we like produce this macho man kind of.
Yeah. Isn't there a statistic about
Yeah.
kind of men and suicide?
Yeah. Men commit suicide 3 times more than females in the United States. And I think it has a lot to do with this fact that we bottle our emotions in and we have such a hard time expressing and getting things out. So they stay trapped and they torment us until, in some cases, suicide, which is horrible.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that Bill Burr. Just the Bill Burr skit where he just shove it. You just put it down.
Can we just play that?
Yeah, we'll play
Let's play it.
It's the reason why guys drop at 55 out of fucking nowhere. It's literally from 5 decades of just suppressing the urge to like hug a puppy, admit a baby's cute, say you want a cookie. You just gotta keep pushing it down like.
Comedy is a good relief here.
I feel like how did this book impact you with that? Because I feel like you struggle with vulnerability a little bit more than I do. It comes more naturally to me
Yeah.
than it does to you. So how did this book change you, or what changes have you made in your life to bring it to life and open up a little more?
I think I've done a lot of reflecting on why. I've asked myself why I haven't had the courage to express how I really feel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And as I've like gone deep into myself, I think I've found it's because I don't want to show weakness. And that's what the story I was telling myself was. If I share something I'm struggling with, then people might think that I'm weak. I grew up playing football and, just
That's how you were raised.
it's this environment of growing up in Brooklyn, right? You have to have a strong chin.
You have to be tough.
Yeah. So I think as I reflected deeper on that, it was like, okay, there's some deep-seated story here that probably isn't really serving me anymore. And learning from you and your vulnerability, and then reading this, it got me to reflect on my relationship with my wife and my relationship with you. I have found myself more willing to say things that I would often keep in.
Like what?
Like, you told me you were going to do this, and then you didn't do this. It's bothering me. It's making me feel some sort of way. And I feel some sort of resentment inside towards you because of it. And in the past, I would just hold on to that, and then I would unleash it in some unrelated thing,
You know what this reminds
like
me of?
a week down the line.
Tim Ferriss says the quality of your life is determined by the number of difficult conversations you're willing to have.
Yeah.
Right? So it's about changing your mindset around conflict
Yeah.
and not burying every time you sense a potential conflict, but opening up to what you are feeling and then expressing it. But the real key, in my opinion, is how you express it. What state of mind are you expressing it in?
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's something that I've had to learn. And I think rather than try to learn how to communicate it effectively, I've just developed a pattern of just burying it and then just moving on.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to wrap this up because I feel like it's the perfect transition to a call to action for the audience and for ourselves.
What do you got for us, Mike?
I think it's really asking yourself a question. And that question is there a relationship that is very important to me that there's something left unsaid? And the best way to really come to that answer is to do this simple exercise. Imagine yourself on your deathbed, just like Jude from the beginning of this episode. And on your deathbed, who comes to mind as you're about to pass that if you didn't have the chance to tell them these words, you would die with regret? You would feel pain. You would die with this pain. Whatever that is that you have to say to whoever it is, go say it now and release yourself from that burden, from that heaviness. Have that difficult conversation, because although it's scary and although it may feel or seem like weakness, on the other side of it is freedom, and it's really an act of strength, not an act of weakness. That's my call to action.
Beautifully said. So call someone, let them know how you really feel.
And if you don't want to do all that, just call someone up and tell them you love them.
Yeah.
That's the simple one.
Yeah.
With that said, once again, we love you. Thank you for listening and joining us and
Love
hanging
you.
out with us.
Another
And,
one in the books, bro.
Another episode in the books. Peace.